Hi everyone, welcome back for another Lunation forecast podcast. What are we calling this? I don't know. I'm excited. It is a new moon in Cancer this month, and a new moon is always a time where we're sowing seeds for the future 6 months ahead of us. We are setting out new intentions. We're thinking about what do we want to manifest, what do we want to bring into fruition, into reality. And with this new moon in Cancer being in the sign of the moon, and the moon naturally being one of these activators of fate, according to ancient Hellenistic astrology, the vibe of astrology that I'm most aligned with, mixed in with a little bit of modern psychological at the same time, there is this energy of what is the activation now? What has been waiting for the right timing? It's a very handsy podcast. And where I've been really waiting to embody the next steps, the next part of this process, the next part of this experience. So let's get into what it means for you. So this new moon in Cancer is taking place. Let me share my screen so that we can see the chart at 22 degrees of Cancer. Let me just get this up on the screen. So it's at 21:59 of Cancer. So we always round up if it's beyond the 30-minute mark, which is the minutes of the inside numbers here. So we're calling this a new moon at 22 degrees of Cancer. First and foremost, to delineate what this means for you, in the most simplest way, you look to the whole sign house of Cancer in your birth chart to see which life area is being activated. So these numbers all around the central wheel are the house numbers, and they all signify different things. So first house is self, body, personal outlook. Second house is skills, talents, and personal resources. Third house is living environment, local neighborhood, and siblings. Fourth house is home, family, parents, roots. Fifth house is play, creativity, joy, and children. Sixth house is daily routines, well-being, small pets, smaller than a horse. Pets bigger than a horse live in the 12th house. I always love that fact. And co-workers in the 6th house there. 7th house is marriage partnerships, close one-to-one relationships. This can be best friends or kind of like confidants, partners in crime. This is also the house of therapy. 8th house is the place of our personal fears, deep-rooted like insecurities, but also power that we perhaps sometimes don't realize that we have until it becomes activated and it's kind of called upon us to face our power from the inside. And it's also the house of other people's resources. So this can be shared resources like a mortgage or, a joint finance of some kind agreement. 9th house is spirituality, the higher meaning, can be long distance travel, astrology, and dreams and teachers. 10th house is career, visibility. This is a very pinpointed, what do we call it? Lamp, spotlight, that's it. Spotlight shining on your life. This part of yourself is really visible in the sky. So this can be your public roles as well, as a parent, as a partner, as a business partner, as your role in your work, for example. 11th house is, slow it down, is friendships, community, personal cheerleaders. And then the 12th house is the subconscious, the realm of rest and recuperation, where we go when the daily demands of that 6th house of the well-being and the daily routines is no longer pressing upon us. We get to come back and sit kind of slightly away from society and reflect and spend some time with our subconscious to see what comes to the surface. So that's just a reminder of the house topics. The horoscopes, I'm not doing full horoscopes here. That was just a kind of reminder of the house placements. But there are some horoscopes over on Substack and over on Instagram at Astrology Freya. And these are based on your rising sign. So whenever I meet somebody who's just recently gotten into astrology or somebody who knows a little bit about it but kind of wants to know more, one of my biggest first tips is always find out what your rising sign is. So the rising sign is governed here by this ascendant sign. You can do this on a free website like astro.com. Just put your details in and it will let you know. You need to know your birth time, your date of birth and your location of birth, and then it will let you know what your rising sign is. And this always means that, say, for example, the horoscopes that I've written for Instagram and Substack, they are around the Cancer house of the birth chart, because this is a Cancerian new moon. It will put that new moon in the correct life area for your rising sign. So, for example, if you're a Virgo rising, which is what this chart is set to at the exact time of the new moon tomorrow, I'm recording this on the 13th of July. New moon is exact on the 14th of July, around about 9:45 in the morning. Daylight savings may have adjusted that to 10:45, but yes, around about the late morning of the 14th of July is when this new moon is exact. Yeah, so it will put that new moon in exactly the right life area, and therefore the horoscopes may make more sense to you when you look at your rising sign. You can look for your sun sign as well, but unless you have got the sun in your first house, you will probably find that some of the delineations of the horoscopes don't fit accurately. And that's simply because the life area that is ruled by Cancer in your birth chart, or the house, otherwise known as, that Cancer is in your birth chart, is not sitting in the correct place for the new moon if you're going by a planet more than an actual angle in the birth chart. Anyway, if I've lost you, I'm sorry. Let's come back to it. So yes, I'm loving this new moon in terms of personal safety. And I really want to get into this idea of the embodiment, because the moon rules our physical body. It rules over our emotions, our kind of daily routines, our daily needs that need to be met in order for us to feel safe. And there is this real safety consciousness with this Cancerian new moon. We've had a whole year of Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter being exalted in Cancer and being this massive kind of protective layer, some people have been experiencing it as, around all of those things to do with our body, to do with our nutrition, to do with our daily routines. And here's my little kind of personal quip for you, is that I've spent many years not really eating much dairy. I just find that it kind of doesn't sit very well with me. It kind of makes me lose my voice. I feel uncomfortable with it. Anyway, all of Jupiter in Cancer, I started eating more dairy. I was trying to get more protein into my diet. I started kind of lifting weights and doing all these very Jupiter things where I wanted to make my muscles bigger. As a Cancer rising person, Jupiter was in my first house, was very connected to my body and my physical experience of life. I wanted to feel stronger, and Jupiter really gave me that self-belief that I could get stronger. And I have really enjoyed that process and hope to carry it forwards. However, since Jupiter's moved into Leo, it is a different feeling. And I've noticed that during Jupiter in Cancer, that whole transit from 2025 to 2026, June of both years, before Jupiter moved into Leo, I wasn't getting any of the physical symptoms from eating more dairy. And I was like, this is brilliant. I've kind of, I don't know, like cured myself of having an intolerance to dairy. And, you know, the moon, Cancer is ruled by the moon, and that rules things like breast milk and lactose and cream and really rich foods like butter and cheese and, yeah, like double cream and all those amazing things, and yogurt. And it's the yogurt that I've been eating a lot of. And then since Jupiter moved into Leo, it's almost like the dairy allergy has come back. My ears are kind of slightly blocked. My throat is a little bit kind of hoarse. I'm having to like go quite a lot. And it's like that protective layer of Jupiter in Cancer has left the building. But it's actually a really useful process to go back and look over the last 12 months to see, you know, how was Jupiter in Cancer feeling? You know, what's been happening over the last 12 months? Because this new moon, which is taking place in late morning on the 14th of July, which is a Tuesday here in the UK. You may need to adjust that for wherever you are on the planet. But it is like, okay, there's a new beginning here with the wisdom that Jupiter rules over wisdom, the wisdom around body consciousness, nutrition, and our connection to how much we feel connected or disconnected from our bodies that we received from Jupiter in Cancer over the last year. Now we're entering a new phase for the next 6 months, because typically at a new moon, we're sowing a new seed of intention, which will typically kind of come to fruition or culmination point at the full moon in Cancer in 6 months' time, which is around about December or January. I haven't quite got the date, so it could be a December full moon or a January of 2027 moon. And there will be all the moonlight that we need there to see, like, was that a path that I want to continue following, or was that a path that I need to kind of tweak and hone because these new ideas. So for example, with my dairy thing, perhaps I now start thinking, all right, so I need to cut out dairy again. I'm going to have to find new sources of protein that are kind of more kind of plant-based. And I find it quite difficult to get the right amount of protein to feel strong and well and what's the word, like powered enough by my food. I find it very hard to find something that kind of matches the energy and that kind of satiety, is it? That satiating quality of like a yogurt or something like that. I actually don't like milk, and I'll drink soya milk, but when you check the kind of the macros, I think they call it, on the back of like a packaging of yogurt made from dairy and yogurt made from soya, often the correlation is quite difficult to find a plant-based yogurt which has got as much protein per serving or whatever as a dairy. But this is perhaps a process of things that I will be looking at in my own life as a Cancer rising. This is in my first house, is very connected to my body, but this in your own life could be much more connected to, for example, if you're a Capricorn rising, then this will be in your 7th house. So, you know, if there's a dairy allergy going on for your partner in that 7th house, then it could be a process of supporting your partner through trying to balance out their dairy allergy, or however Jupiter in Cancer has shown up for them over the last 12 months. It doesn't have to be nutrition, but it is very connected to nutrition. There were a lot of tummy aches during Jupiter in Cancer's transit, particularly with natal placements in the sign of Cancer. A lot of tummy aches, because Cancer, it rules over the stomach and the kind of the womb space, not so much the reproductive organs, although it does rule over the breasts and the chest, because that is where that initial source of nutrition comes from, breastfeeding babies and you know, keeping babies safe whilst they're in utero. It's that safety of the uterus that is really being magnified, like I said, over the last 12 months with Jupiter in Cancer. And now at this new moon in Cancer, we're very much thinking about, what is a womb space like for me? If I was turning my sleep space into a womb, what would I want it to look like, feel like? And this is going to be different for all of us, right? Because we don't all have a moon in the sign of Cancer, which might be very connected to, like, I want it quiet, I want that, you know, maybe white noise of like what it sounds like when you're in utero, and perhaps there's like blood vessels whooshing and like heartbeats thumping and all that kind of stuff, and you're kind of like floating in water. Maybe you've got a waterbed, and that's really comforting for you. But not all of us have a moon in Cancer. We have moons in different zodiac signs. So with this one, like I said, checklist, check your whole sign house of Cancer to see which life area is being activated, and go back to the beginning of this video to check through those life areas, because I have briefly mentioned what each life area or house is about. But also then, as a secondary thing, look to your natal moon sign to see what is that womb space for me? What does it look like? You know, maybe if you have a moon in Aquarius, you really want that womb space to be much more, I don't know, technologically supportive. Aquarius really likes electricity. It likes ideas. It's an air sign, so it's very of the mind, very cerebral, very chatty. And maybe an ideal sleep space for a moon in Aquarius is sleeping with the radio on, or sleeping like, and you know, with the window open, so that you can hear society still existing outside. You know, you hear that, like, maybe the noisy sirens. We live in the city centre, so maybe that's just me. But yeah, hearing the hustle and bustle of life might be quite a comforting thing to you. Or it could even be that you're particularly what's the word, responsive to outside noises as a moon in Aquarius, and you need to shut some of that off. So maybe you wear ear defenders or something like that, so that you're just in that kind of more peaceful space. But we're all individuals when it comes to our sleep space. So I absolutely think finding our womb space, finding our place of safety and nourishment is so important here. And because it is a new moon, it's a brand new beginning point. This isn't something where we are, you know, sort of moving an old idea forwards, although that can be part of it because we are in a Mercury retrograde in the sign of Cancer at the moment as well. But this is like absolutely feeling within your gut, because it's a water sign. We're thinking about, how does something feel? Feeling in your gut, where do I feel safe? Where do I no longer feel safe? Where do I want to create more safety? Where do I want to create more comfort? And enjoy a sense of nostalgia whilst also thinking about new beginnings, new paths moving forward. Nostalgia, because the Cancer being ruled by the moon is a very reflective light, and it likes to reflect back, a bit like a retrograde, retrograde, reflect back on the old times, connected with family, connected with growing up, connected with childhood, connected with your favorite ice cream, connected with your favorite family holidays, you know, connected with even your experiences by the sea, because Cancer is ruled by water, so your experience is near the water. So this is a really nice new moon to spend time near water if you can, or to fill a bottle and put it in the window, to just put it in the you know, on the windowsill, to capture that kind of new moon intentionality. It's not the full moon light that we might do, but it's a new moon intentionality, and that we are ready to nourish and water those new moon intentions for the future. Something incredibly exciting as an astro geek myself is that this new moon is actually taking place at the point where we had a Mercury cazimi in the sign of Cancer just over the weekend, literally a couple of days before this. So I find that absolutely fascinating. It's at the same degree point in our birth chart. So if you have natal planets at around 20 to 25 degrees of Cancer, Aries, Libra, or Capricorn, or even Pisces and Scorpio, then this new moon is going to be much more strongly speaking to your sense of, okay, where do I want to start something new? Cardinals and Cancer is a cardinal sign, which is initiating, moving forwards into new territory. And those other signs are also cardinal. Well, the first three were, and the first four were, and then Pisces and Scorpio are the water signs, which will be receiving a trine, like a free flow energy from this new moon in Cancer, whereas the first four signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, are receiving this square or an opposition aspect, which is the energy of needing to put some work, effort, determination, drive, passion into moving something forward. It's not just going to land in your lap like it might do for Pisces and Scorpio and Cancer, but it is like, with hard work and effort, there is something beautiful to be built here around your own sense of safety. So just back to this idea of the Mercury cazimi, that was something that happened literally over this weekend, just gone. So that's the 11th and the 12th of July. Pay attention to what was taking place over this weekend, what suddenly turned up, because the cazimi literally means Mercury in the heart of the sun. And it's like a brief reprieve from the Mercury retrograde annoyances. And usually Mercury retrograde is like things go missing, you can't find your car keys, there's a breakdown in a washing machine. Lots of kitchen stuff has been smashed in my house, like not on purpose. I've like accidentally dropped plates and things like that. And really like ones that really mean a lot to me. I'm like nostalgic, and I'm like, oh, my family member gave me this, and suddenly it's smashed, and I'm like, oh my God. Trying not to get too attached to the memories and that reflection of the moon. Yes, and the cazimi is this empowered moment. It only lasts, I mean, there is some speculation around this. So officially it's within a 15-minute window, when Mercury and the sun are within 15 minutes of each other, which is a very brief amount of time, maybe about kind of 6 hours on Saturday, the 11th of July. However, in practice, I do find that a cazimi tends to bring about this clarity of mind, clarity of understanding, Sometimes things show up that have been lost previously in the Mercury retrograde. This is the halfway point. So like over the last week and a half, building up to that cazimi date on the Saturday, the 11th of July, things can kind of show up. You can get the sense of clarity. And I tend to find that it does last about 24 hours. So really, that's why I'm saying Saturday and Sunday, the 11th and 12th of July, was this cazimi moment, this empowered mental moment, but also in the sign of Cancer, this empowered emotional intelligence that's coming through from our bodies saying, this is where I feel safe, this is where I absolutely don't feel safe, this is where I feel more kind of at ease with what my body's doing, at ease with the food that I like to eat, at ease with my daily routines, at ease at home. You know, Cancer ruling the home and the living environment. It's like, do I have the tools and the stuff surrounding me that help provide a nourished, loving, warm kind of, like, I'm getting the image of soup now. We're in a heat wave in the UK, so soup's not exactly something that I've thought about for a long time, but that nice warm hug that a bowl of soup might give to you on like a cold autumn day or kind of winter's day. It's that kind of feeling. Have you been able to create that in your home, or is that something that you want to start implementing in your home over the next 6 months? And home can be this external environment where you are spending time within the building perhaps that you live in, or the van that you live in, but it's also home within your own body. And then if we want to go even deeper, it's that home within the womb space, like we were just talking about earlier. Think about, in terms of like your monthly cycle, where are you at this new moon? Are you on day 1 of your bleed? Are you ovulating? Are you just coming into inner spring? Those first kind of, what are we saying, like kind of day 5 to day 10 might be kind of inner springtime. Are you moving into inner autumn and feeling like more emotional? You know, this is a new moon ruled by Cancer, so the tears could be flowing quite easily at this time. And yeah, pay attention. Do you want to start cycle tracking? This is a great way, potentially, like, and I'm just talking anecdotally here, from my own experience of like, feeling safer in your own body could become a real thing if you understand what she's reflecting back to you by cycle tracking, by starting to notice the kinds of patterns and undulations that we go through every single month with our cycle. I always find it really reassuring when I check. I write it down on my phone. I'm like, you know, probably should just write it on paper, so it's not like, I don't know, available to the marketing companies, but I write it all down on my phone anyway, because otherwise I just won't get it done. And I'm always really surprised when I'm like, right, I feel really angry today, I'm going to write it in. And then I'm like, okay, like day 19, and it comes up like with stuff I've written previously for a day 19. And it's always like really angry. And it reflects back to me that bodily wisdom, which really makes me feel supported. It makes me feel more like myself, that I can trust myself. I trust my body. I trust my cycle implicitly. She knows what she's doing, even during perimenopause, even when she starts to get erratic. It's all part of the journey of that inner womb space, and it is the safety of that journey, despite how erratic it can become as it starts to kind of shift and change throughout the kind of period of life in our 40s, usually this period of perimenopause, and things can start to change. But we can have trust in that, and we can have safety in that. It's just about finding our new balance with safety, which is about finding perhaps unbalance and factoring that unbalance into our living environments, into that living environment of the womb space, and slightly larger, the living environment of our body space, and then slightly larger than that, making it external, the living environment of our home space. And it's like, it's working on that kind of 3-tier level. You've got that microcosm of the womb space, then it gets slightly bigger with the body space, and then it's extended fully out into the home space. And if there's a lack of kind of feeling safe or feeling nurtured in any of those environments, then those 3 layers are going to be connecting and talking to each other and communicating with each other. And the new moon is always a beautiful time to sit and be quiet, to perhaps sleep more, to be more reflective, to have some peace and some calm, because it's the full moon when we get busy and we're very sort of out there and vibrant typically. But at the new moon, it's a place of like quiet contemplation. So if you're going to sit down and do any journaling, then I would recommend doing some journaling around these three spaces: the inner womb, the body, and the home, and seeing if there's any connecting factors. You know, these things make me feel safe in all three areas, or if there are some factors which are clashing with each other that perhaps need this idea of, okay, where can I bring in some new nurturance into that area of my life to help support my own vitality at this time. So I really hope that that all makes sense. And as always, I'm really happy to discuss like your reflections. Please comment below if you have any questions. I am available for one-to-one readings. You can check out at the booking link below this video for an online one-to-one reading. There's pre-recorded readings as well, where you don't need to be live in the session, but I will need your birth details, which would be date of birth, time of birth, and location. And the pre-records are really good if you've got a specific question, if you want to look at this new moon in your own birth chart, if you want to look at the eclipses which are coming up in 1 month's time, which is when we have our first eclipse, and they always they always travel in pairs. So we've got 2 eclipses in August, one on the 12th and one 2 weeks later. I think it's the 28th. And those signal times of great new beginnings and great culmination points where we feel like fate has kind of intervened and swept us away in the moment. And we feel sometimes like we have a lack of agency that we might feel more able to harness during the rest of the year when we're not in an eclipse season. The last eclipse season was kind of February, March time, and now we're on to the next eclipse season. So think back to earlier in this year, just before springtime, to see what energies were taking place for you at that time, what was feeling a little bit at sea, where were you seeing beginnings and endings and culmination points taking place, because there's going to be a reflection of that at the next eclipse points for you. And we have also got the nodes of fate changing sign just over the next month as well, moving from the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo to the North Node in Aquarius and the South Node in Leo. So the North Node and South Node always travel in these opposing pairs. And those nodes are the nodes of fate, and they are the things that govern where the eclipses are going to be in the sky. And so they are big deals, and they illuminate 2 birth chart houses. If we're using the whole sign house system, there will be activating 2 birth chart houses, 2 opposing birth chart houses, where there's lots of loud flashing lights over here in this life area, and this kind of energy of relinquishing and letting go and surrendering in this life area. So there's always a very dynamic energy with the eclipses, and often people will seek out a birth chart reading during eclipse season. So please do get in touch, or you can email me, astrologyfreya@gmail.com. That's Freya, Freyja. And I hope to see you next time for the full moon update. Take care.